So excited today to be joined by Senator Amy Klobuchar from Minnesota. Senator, great to have you here on a
Well,
very chaotic day.
thanks, Aaron.
Yeah, I want to jump right in and just what's the latest with the budget bill? Where are we? It's now just after 4 p.m. Where do things stand?
Well, we are just continuing to push votes to show what these guys are really about. This bill is about tax cuts for billionaires. Bottom line, $400,000 for anyone that's a multimillionaire, and everyone else, it's pittance or worse. And one of the things we're really trying to show with these votes is if you say you think the Medicaid cuts are immoral, you don't have to make the Medicaid cuts. So we've
Hmm.
been pushing votes on things like don't push $1 trillion worth of Medicaid cuts on the American people when 1 out of 2 seniors in assisted living are in Medicaid. Do not do something like throw 4 million people off of their food assistance. So we're making them take votes on this right now, trying to get to a place where we can get 4 Republicans to stand up against this bill. And, so far, as you could see from the procedural votes, they just seem to be going in lockstep, rubber stamping the president, like they're afraid to take him on.
Well, I do want to ask you about that. Have you heard, because I know we have Senator Tillis and we have Senator Rand Paul. Those are two no votes. There are two more potentially out there in Murkowski and Collins. Have you heard anything behind the scenes in terms of them potentially breaking at all from Republican leadership?
No, it's just unbelievable. I mean, you have Senator Tillis basically taking the right vote because he had the audacity to tell the truth about the cuts to Medicaid and then being threatened by a primary and then deciding not to run. That's a pretty big 24 hours,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Yet the rest of them have, to them, that just means, okay, I'm going to go rubber stamp the president. I'm going to vote the same as them. I just figure your job as an elected official is that you are supposed to be the one that makes the decisions for your own
Right.
constituents. You're supposed to be the one that says, I will vote the, my conscience, I will do the right thing, and regardless of what people will say. And to me, this is a betrayal of the American people. Interestingly enough, I've been calling this bill the big, beautiful betrayal for a long time because it's a betrayal of working people. Donald Trump said that this would be the ultimate betrayal of him if people didn't vote for it. And so, in my mind, you should be worrying about betraying your constituents and the American people and not Donald Trump.
Well, I mean, I will say Susan Collins is up for re-election like Tillis, and she is running, and yet she looks like she may vote for this bill. I do want to ask you, as far as timing goes, where are we with timing? Is it still a vote potentially this evening? I hear some people may say at 1 a.m. overnight. What are you hearing right now?
I think it'll end up being a vote later in the evening, if not the next day, because we're just going to keep pushing these amendments. We made them, as you know, read the whole bill. We thought
Yeah.
that might help only because it's 940 pages in the middle of the night. We have continued to make the argument, which I think is probably the most effective with some of their constituents, Republicans, that this adds $4 trillion to the debt, all to pay for tax cuts for rich people. $4 trillion to the debt. That's going to mean higher mortgage rates. It's going to mean
Hmm.
harder to get cars, you name it. So we just continue to push those arguments, make them vote on these things, and then they're going to have to decide whose side they're on. So procedurally, we'll push these votes, and then at some point they're going to have to decide, are they going to just vote for this bill or are they going to go back and change it? And right now, honestly, the signs are that they continue to go lockstep.
Right.
If you look at what's been happening on these votes, for instance, the one I pushed out
Hmm.
was saying, and if I had to pick one thing no one knows about that they need to know about,
Yeah.
is that it pushes 64 billion, not million, $64 billion over on the states with the SNAP program food assistance.
Mm.
44 states have some kind of balanced budget requirement in place. They they'll have to cut infrastructure. They'll have to cut cops. And red state and blue state governors have said, "Hey, this is a problem. We can't do this." 64 billion. It's like over $500 million in North Carolina. It's like $1 billion in Texas. That's the kind of money we're talking about.
I do want to ask you about a part of the bill that still hasn't been kicked out, at least not that I'm aware of. It's the AI provision, the failure to, or the prohibition of states to regulate AI. Where are we with that? I know some Republican senators were opposed to it publicly. I don't know if it's still in the bill. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, this one, I'm so glad you brought this up because no one brings this up. AI, we should be putting some rules into place on AI. And I have long advocated for democracy. I've got several bipartisan bills, including on campaign ads and campaign videos that you have to say if it's, done by AI or take it down if it's something that is basically a lie about the person. I have worked with Senator Thune himself on some baselines for AI, and yet people always stop these bills from passing. And so that's why the states are starting to regulate it because Congress isn't doing anything. So what they've done in this budget bill, which is outrageous, is they have tried to say, well, we're not going to have any AI regulations in the state at all. So all of the state AI rules, like the Elvis law in the state of Tennessee, where Marsha Blackburn is from, that came out of having artists that have had their voices or their faces copied. And people should be able to have a right to their own images. So what this work that we've done is due to the fact that several senators, instead of including Senator Blackburn and Hawley and others who've been willing to take on the tech industry, they have basically said, we want to see a change. We don't want this in the bill. So yes, there's negotiations going on, and we'll see what happens.
That's interesting. I will say, I think Senator Collins just put out a statement saying that she's still, quote, leaning no on the budget bill, but that there are going to be a gazillion more
Okay,
amendments.
you've made my day, Aaron. Thank you for the incredible update. Because now, why does this matter?
Well,
Why
because
it
that's
matters is we already have firmly Rand Paul against it and Tom Tillis.
right,
So if Susan Collins votes no, right, then we're at three. But then Vance can break the tie.
right.
So we need four.
Well, I guess that pivots to my final question here. What's your message to folks in the final hours here, 6, 7 hours potentially to go with these amendments in the vote-a-rama? What can they do if they're opposed to this bill to potentially put some more pressure on senators like Murkowski or even folks like John
Right.
Cornyn, who's up for re-election?
Exactly. I would just have them call Republican senators and express why they're mad at it. And I'm going to give you the tools again. $1 trillion in Medicaid cuts, forcing at least 17 million people off their health care. Huge tax cuts for the wealthy. They could have saved so much money if they just said, we're going to keep in place tax cuts on people making 400,000 and less. And that's pretty high.
Right,
But instead, if they would get rid of the tax cuts for the wealthy, that would make it so much better fiscally. If they would get rid of these Medicaid cuts, if they would get rid of the cuts on food assistance, they can talk about the AI rule. They've got to just keep calling because you just never know. As you said, well, it seems like they're voting lockstep. You suddenly have someone like Susan Collins stepping up and saying, she's still leaning no. Or
right,
you might have someone like Lisa Murkowski stand up on this. So the first
right.
vote was just a procedural vote. It's not the final vote.
Well, I will say, Senator, I would be remiss if I didn't, on behalf of everyone, a lot of people in my comments were asking me to tell you this as well, to send their deepest condolences, not just to you, but to your entire state. I know it's very tough right now for Minnesotans, and we just want to thank you for being in the Capitol and really putting in the work. So thank
Oh,
you.
well, thank you. Yeah, I was sad to not be there at the funeral, but I did get back. Senator Smith and I got back the day before and got to meet with Colin and Sophie, their children, who are just this pillar of strength, and then get to show our respects in the Capitol Rotunda. My husband was there, but it was still, I wanted to be there just because at some point
Yeah,
I know that Melissa would want us to keep doing this work. We were really good friends. She cared about this so much, but not being there was a difficult thing. I watched it on live stream, and it was so beautiful, the ceremony. And it ended, by the way, with the Archbishop of Minnesota reminding us the new Pope's words, Pope Leo's words, where he said that politics is the highest form of charity. And I use those words on the Senate floor to remind my colleagues, in Melissa's honor, how we're here to do good work, right? We're
right,
here for whatever brought us here. We're here to do good work for our constituents, and we got to act the part and
right,
not just these guys are just they're afraid of Donald Trump instead of remembering what their job is as politicians, as elected officials, to look out for the people that maybe don't have those lobbyists that are in everyone's ears.
right,
They've got to be their voice.
right. Thank you so much, Senator. Really,
Okay,
really means a
thanks,
lot.
Aaron. Appreciate it.